Thank you for joining me for another episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And today's guest is plain fun. Coach Tony Holler is very well known. He has over 5 million views on his YouTube page. He's got 63,000 followers on Instagram, etc., etc., etc. But he's a coach who thinks that he wants to do it a little bit differently. And I think that the things that you can learn today from this track and field coach can apply to your business, can apply to your parenting, can apply to your life. It is really powerful stuff. So enjoy. Coach Tony, thank you so much for being on the program.
Well, thank you. I'm excited.
Well, me too. I have been just poring over all of your content and it is so much fun. Seem like, I don't know you that well yet, but you seem like a man who really follows your own heart without too much concern for what other people think.
Yes, I think my stuff is counterintuitive, which I love that word because intuitive is not dumb. Intuitive is just thinking this is the way it should be done, and what I offer is a different way that it can be done, and then I explain why. And of course, because I'm still coaching, and because I have 38 years of classroom experience. I have some skin in the game. It's more than just philosophy and words. It's actually this is why I think this, and I'm a storyteller, and we learn by stories. So yeah, I think I'm curious. I read a lot, and I'm interested in other people's ideas that conflict with mine. So I think that's how we grow.
You know what? I think you're exactly right. And I think that we, in general, don't want anything different, anything new, anything that we don't understand. And so you have to have come up against a lot of people saying that, no, this is idiotic. What are you talking about? You want football players in high school to work out on Monday, Wednesday, and then play the game on Friday. And that's it. That's all the workout you think they need.
Yes, I think, I'm a huge believer in a 4-day work week. Regardless, I think that whether we're in sports or in business or parents or whatever, we are performance based. We have to perform. And so, my shirt says rest, recover, sleep. That's the foundation of all performance. And that's whether it's in your kingdom or in my kingdom or whoever. We need to be rested. I love that 4-day work week. I just talked to a football coach last week that has adopted my ideas, and they practice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, take Thursday off, and they play on Friday. And what happens is kids will play like kind of an uncaged animal. Which that's what you want. You want this enthusiasm. By giving a football team Saturday and Sunday off, kids actually start to miss the game. But that's not the way it's always been done. It's been done as a 7-day-a-week thing. It's Kobe Bryant made famous the Mamba mentality, which, you work twice as hard as everybody else, and that's why you become great. And I think that's all mythology. I think that success has just as much to do with luck and fortune and preparation, smart preparation, rest, recovery, sleep, all those things. Just being ready when your opportunity comes. And when coaches find out that they can do half as much and play twice as well, that's not intuitive.
No, that is the opposite of intuitive. So have you done any kind of scientific measurements to show it, or is it just based on the scoreboard that you're saying, look, guys, here's the proof?
That's a really good point, because I say that if everybody's doing it the same way, which has basically been the case for the last 100 years, that the dumb team will always beat the dumber team. And it doesn't mean that the winner was smart. It just means that maybe they had better players or did fewer dumb things than the team they beat. And that's been the subjective, non-sciencey type of thing that guided coaches. That if we went 9-0 as a football team, we must have done everything right, which perpetuates all the BS that they did, where they could have been better. But I was I was lucky that I'm in a measurable sport, which I think, I mean, I've coached football, basketball, and track, but track is the most quantitative sport. And I don't think it's uh, I don't think it's a coincidence that I taught chemistry and coached track as my main two things, because chemistry is very quantitative. We're constantly thinking things, trying things, measuring them, reporting them. Track is the same way. So if I think that training in a certain way, with a certain amount of rest and recovery is effective, I can measure that based on speed, or how high people jump, how far people jump, how strong people get. And so it's actually a quantitative thing. So it was never meant to be an actual science experiment. I say I'm kind of a folksy coach, but we measure everything and we record, rank, and publish everything. And my kids, when they see progress, they gain motivation. In our world, we think of motivation as being like motivational speakers, like words, like the words motivate kids. And I think it can happen, but it only motivates them for a few seconds, because if they don't see progress, they disengage. But we constantly perform in practice, which is totally unique. In the sports world, practice was meant to be hard. And we just practiced really long and hard. And it was harder than the games because we wanted the games to be easy. I say, let the games be hard and let's perform in practice. And so my practice can't be 3 hours. My practices are an hour. And kids go home kind of wishing we would still be practicing, which means they look forward to the next day.
That is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So how long? Okay, first off, can you explain feed the cats?
Yes, there was among track coaches, there's a term for twitchy athletes, that sprinters are different than distance runners. I say that distance runners are like the family dog, wonderful, wonderful things. They're obedient. They, if you go on a 3 mile run, they'll go with you. When you're done, they look at you like, is that all? Is that all? Can we run some more? Whereas a cat will not go on a 3 mile run.
Yep.
But cats are weird. They sleep 20 hours a day, but for 4 hours a day, they can be an assassin. And that's the way sprinters are. Sprinters are not as fun to coach, because those cats, just like a cat, they are kind of aloof and they would rather sleep than work out sometimes. But if you gamify practice, which can be as simple as just measuring their time and yelling out their time and posting their time on the website and posting it on the wall of the field house. When you do that, they respond because they're so competitive. So to be a good track coach, 14 of our 18 high school events in my state are really sprint based. So we want to be the fastest team around. There used to be a saying that God makes sprinters and coaches make milers, because it seemed like it was easier to improve endurance than improve speed. I say speed grows like a tree. So we really focus on building that speed and we stay consistent. So if I want to have every cat that goes to my school on my track team, I have to nourish those kids. I have to make those kids want to come. I have to make those kids look forward to training in a sport that's not always pleasant. But I try to make it pleasant and I gamify it. And my kids, I think, go home saying, I like this and I can't wait for tomorrow. And that inertia just really keeps them going in the right direction. And it's so fun to see kids don't like high school. But if you can get them liking your classroom or your sport, man, they'll do anything for you. Kids, these people say kids these days and all that stuff. I don't like those people. Because the kids I know are spectacular. As long as they like what they're doing, they're really good at it. So getting back to that feed the cats, instead of doing the typical coach thing, which was always to push, I think to be player friendly, kid friendly, that you need to feed them, nourish them. And I just kind of like the ring of it. We're going to feed the cats.
And so how do you feed them?
We feed them by gamifying practice, by keeping it short. The attention span of a cat is not very long. I would argue the attention span of a high school student is not very long. So you have to understand that and then meet them where they're at. I could say that kids are good at what they like and they're obsessed with what they love. So if you could ever create a sports situation that kids love, they're going to perform really, really well. And a lot of people think that kids don't want to do hard things, and they're wrong. Kids, if you challenge a kid and say, this is the hardest thing we're going to do all year, most of your kids will be like, we're going to get this done. I mean, it's to think that kids don't want to work hard. I just don't think it's been presented in the right way, or maybe it's because we've worked them too hard every day, like, and it becomes the grind. And of course, what do coaches do? They worship the grind. I'm like the opposite. I'm like, like F the grind. So.
Okay. So how does that play out for you? How many people have you been able to persuade to at least take a peek at what it is you're doing instead of, no, that's stupid?
There are people that say, no, that's stupid, who come around later, like conversions. I love conversions. My favorite people are old. I'm 65, and I love the older coaches. Like, hey, I've been in it for 30 years, and I've realized that I've been doing it wrong for 30 years. Wow. And they're not saying it sad. They're saying it with excitement.
Yes.
Like they're going to be reborn to a different way of doing things. I actually had a letter from a coach's wife one time that said that I saved their marriage. And that's beautiful because if you've never been married to a coach, okay, let me explain. A traditional coach that practices 3 hours, their kids are tired before the practice starts. And the kids are like, I don't know if I can get through this. And so the kids can't perform because they're tired. And so the coach has to be mean and nasty and cuss them and push them and then hug them later and then push them some more. And when they come home, they have a tendency to kick the dog and yell at their wife because they can't turn it off. They have to be a mean taskmaster for 2 or 3 hours. And then they go home and they have to turn into this soft, cuddly, teddy bear of a man. And it doesn't work very well. Plus, they've spent way too much time at practice. If practice is shorter, family time is bigger. And so I just think it's a better way to live. And I think that even in the business world, you probably see people that have strong business stuff going on during the day, but their balance isn't very good between their family and their success in their profession. And if you've ever read the book Essentialism, I would suggest that to everybody. It's a short book. You can read it in 2 days. And to a lot of people, it changes their life. To me, it reaffirmed my life. That essentialism is basically finding the things that matter and going big on those things. And then learning how to say no to all the other directions that we go. So we accomplish more in less time. It kind of goes along with the Pareto principle. 20% of our work produces 80% of our results. The hard thing is to find what that 20% is, and then going big on it, and then reducing your total time so that you can enjoy being a human as well.
So you have figured out that 20%. You have an incredible website that somebody who wants to be a great coach who's watching this, they can go on your website and for $40, they can get you teaching them all the way through. What made you create that?
Uh, well, my courses on CoachTube, um, the guy actually reached out to me and told me that um, he said I could be the next Hal Mummy, which Hal Mummy is a famous coach who created the air raid offense. And so I was like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. He said, well, Hal Mummy made $100,000 selling courses for air raid. And I think Feed the Cats could do the same thing. And I was like, yeah, right. And it just kind of happened at the right time. It was over the COVID years. So I had, my track season had been canceled. And so I really, really went to work creating courses, just like PowerPoint things and just recording my voice over them. And yeah, and now I'm the number 2 all-time seller for Coach Tube, behind Hal Mummy still, because he's made a lot more than 100,000 now. Uh, but yes, it is. Um, Coach Tube is kind of like YouTube for coaches, except for they sell your videos.
Wow, that is cool. And phew, your life has turned around completely. So we talked a little before we started. Let's go back to the beginning. You were born into what kind of a family? What was life like for you as a child?
Yeah, I was born to, you hear about generational wealth. I was born into generational poverty. Like my mom had a really great family. 3 of her brothers were college football players, blah, blah, blah. But they had no money. They were just an Irish family, blah, blah, blah. And then my dad was, like government housing, born in a tent. His parents didn't make it past 3rd grade, all that kind of stuff. So luckily, my dad had a coach that encouraged him to go to college. He didn't encourage it; he made sure it happened. And this is wild. I don't know if you know this, but in the 50s, less than 10% of adults had college degrees.
That doesn't surprise me.
Isn't that wild?
It is
And
wild,
now,
but
of course, much more.
yeah.
So by his coach getting him to get a college degree, my dad taught and coached for 47 years. So he paid it forward. And so I was first born. My mom was 20, my dad was 23. And I was one of eventually 4 kids, and is one of those families that we ate at home 21 times a week. Our vacations were to the grandparents' house. I didn't get on a plane till I was 30. So really, it was a salt of the earth type of thing. I drove a ugly station wagon to prom that the driver's side door was dented in, and so my girlfriend had to get in through the driver's side. So that was a type of life. And of course, so what do I do? I'm going to be a doctor in college, but then I said, nah, I'm a teacher and a coach. So I'm just going to live that same poverty-ridden life and all that kind of stuff. And then the world changed. That like 15 years ago, I'm 50 some years old. I met some people that were spectacular, and we basically stay the same unless it's for the people we meet or the books we read. And so Steve Jobs said that you can look back and see all the dots in your past, but you can't see the dots in your future, which is one of my favorite sayings. And I had some incredible dots in the last 10 to 12 years. They're like spectacular people who are now like good friends of mine. So just the fact that I could write and put it out there was something I couldn't do back in 1980. I had to be like published by a magazine that had to accept me. And the same with writing a book. The book that I'm writing, I'm not going to self-publish, but I could. And it's not hard to do. And it's cheap. So it's just a different world with social media and the opportunities we have to do podcasts. And people listen to these podcasts. And these podcasts can change people's lives.
And they have. I mean, they've changed my life. I'm sure they've changed your life. And it's a continuous change. Now that you're here, are you done learning? Are you done growing?
No, well, you knew the answer. I cannot wait to see the dots in my next 10 years. I cannot wait. I don't know who they are and when they'll come and how they will move my direction, but I know they're there. And if you're the type of person that never experiences those dots, you're doing something wrong. You're not curious enough. You're not putting yourself out there enough. I think our world is way too indoors.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh,
even like
big
little
time.
kids, like they're spending like the only time they're outside is like to walk to the car. Um, Otherwise, we're living in 69-degree consistent temperatures, not getting hot, not getting cold, not getting wet, um, and not meeting people. You know, not giving yourself a chance to run into that person that's going to change your life. And so I hope that my health is really good right now, but I hope my health remains good for the next 10 years so that I can have fun and have a bunch of dots.
Well, I think that you're definitely headed in that direction. You have almost 63,000 subscribers on YouTube. You've got almost 5 million views. That's a lot of exposure. Is that, when you think about that, are you thinking it's you, or is there somebody else doing that?
Yeah, all that is. I think actually, I think the 5 million views is correct. I think my YouTube is 33,000 and my Instagram is 63,000. But
Oh,
it doesn't
that's right.
matter because they all feed each other and everything. And I'm on 5 different platforms. I'm in control of Twitter only. My son Troy it runs my other 4 platforms. So there are many times like when I got on a private jet uh, on Monday to go train a kid out in Connecticut, where I'm thinking this is almost embarrassing that I'm living this life now because that's not who I am. Uh, but you know, I think a lot of people find themselves successful or find themselves producing an incredible product that it was unintentional, that they were just working and doing what they liked, and good stuff eventually happened.
Uh-huh.
Um, it didn't happen to me until I was very old. In my 50s, my kids were all out of the house and everything before things started to grow. And, I never thought that I would have a business called Feed the Cats. Um, but it's there. And there are very few coaches in the United States that have not heard the words Feed the Cats.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And it's only going to continue to grow from there. This is, this is an awful lot. One of the things that you said is it felt weird to you to be on that flight and the way that you were treated and all that, because that's not who you are. However, who you are is someone different than who you used to be.
Mm. We really aren't the same person, are we?
No, sir. I mean, that, like the river, no man can step into the river because he's a different man and the water's different, right?
I use that quote all the time. You can't step into the same river twice.
yeah, right.
So, and people are afraid of that change.
Huge,
Um,
huge afraid.
and I think if the two of us could give people the advice, I actually, when I retired from teaching, I wrote an article about my retirement and said my life feels like I'm on some type of boat on a river, and we don't know, when you're going to fall off into the abyss, when death is going to come or cancer or whatever. Um, but really, the secret's enjoying the ride, and knowing that the river that you see now will not be the same river that you see in a year. And instead of being afraid of that, you get excited about that. So yeah, I love all those metaphors.
Yeah, Tony Robbins talks about it a lot, that that your identity, that people's identity is the most, it's like, no, this is who I am. And people are just so, and one thing I would like to say to you guys is maybe, just maybe, open up. You might like the you on the other side of learning something new and different better than you like the this is who I am person. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, I love that. the biases. I love to read about survivorship bias and the anchor bias is very interesting. Anchor bias is basically in biology, we get imprinted by the first thing we learn. Almost everybody that we know, same religion as their parents, same political party as their parents. There are people in this political season that says, I'm a lifelong Democrat or a lifelong Republican. I'm like, you were born? Well, actually, they were born that way. We were imprinted very early. And so what happens is we develop this system of beliefs through imprinting. The first thing we learn is who we become. And I read once that there are people who spend their first 20 years learning and growing, and the rest of their life defending it. And that's kind of speaking to what you were talking about. Those people that I mean, to fight for who you are sounds like really good, unless who you are is not who you should be.
Yes.
Just
yes. But you don't know that it's not who you should be. You've got these blinders on. And until you read books or meet people that will help show it to you, it's pretty amazing.
And then those people that really feel great about fighting for their beliefs and the tradition and I'm old school and all those things, those same people will search out people that think like they do.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they're not curious. They're wanting confirmation. That's confirmation bias, obviously. And in today's world, confirmation bias is kind of ruining our society. Like social media. If you only want to hear one type of talk, you can kind of do that. And so we get deeper and deeper with fighting for who we are and hating the people who don't think the way we do, that we don't realize, I don't think the answer is always in the center. Like I don't believe the far right and the far left are equally horrible. But I do think that when people talk face to face, we have so many more similarities than differences that we need to hear people who think other than we do.
I couldn't agree more. There was a professor who did, and this was before COVID. I'm sure it's worse now, but he did this little experiment with his people, and he called up 2 students and he set them in a chair so they were looking at each other, and he said, talk to each other for 5 minutes. And coach, they couldn't do it. They could not do it. So he turns their backs and puts them back to back and says, text each other for 5 minutes. No problem. They could do it all day long. So you're very into belly to belly, face to face. Tell me some of the stories that just warm your heart from all the years of coaching, where even if it was when you were doing it the wrong way, but where you were really able to help a kid who, if you had not been in their life, it would have ended very poorly.
Yeah, it's weird. One of the first things that popped in my head was the kids I failed with. The kids that became more important than my track team itself to save them, and I didn't save them. Sometimes we can do everything, and the kid just has to crash, and most people pick themselves up and have good lives. But yeah, I remember a kid that I actually succeeded with. He was a beautiful kid, looked like a movie star, African American, and we were in a town that was in the South, and it was just like 30 years removed from having black elementary schools and white elementary schools. They had segregated study halls, like in the 60s. It's like segregated study, like black kids and white kids couldn't like study together. So that's the way a lot of the South, that's where the South has come from. And so anyway, this kid, lived in a black neighborhood, but he was, like I said, looked like a movie star. He's a terrific athlete, and he just couldn't pass classes. And of course, if you can't pass classes, you don't get to play sports, and which is I'm probably one of the few people that believe that we should not take something that a kid does well from them because they can't pass a math class. We would never tell that kid, you can't play that piano anymore because you're not good at math. So why do we do that with football, basketball, and track? But anyway, so I had to work within the system, and I got him tested special ed, like learning disability. Sure enough, kid just couldn't read. And as a weird thing, he didn't go out for football till his senior year. And you would think that football, the most complicated sport in the world, that this poor kid would just never learn the plays. This kid took to it like a fish takes to water. I mean, like, he never made a mistake. He knew every play. He just learned differently. He did not learn. I was real good sitting my butt in a desk, which I could do for 7 hours. I still can. I can sit down for 7 hours and work. And that's a skill. That's a skill he did not have. And he did not have parents that read to him, those types of things. So he eventually gained some self-respect, which I think sports can do for a kid. He didn't get that from school, but he got that from sports. And I'll never forget, he went into, he took a heavy machinery class as a senior, which is something that, like schools don't offer anymore. This is back in the 1990s. Schools are all like college prep now. They don't do, like engine repair or anyway, he learned how to work a crane. And to this day, he's a heavy machinery operator. And even more beautiful, he married an elementary teacher. So this kid, isn't that great?
That's
this kid
awesome.
that let's just say that his kids are being read to. And he is a proud, well-paid worker that still looks like a movie star and still looks like he could play in the NFL. And I saved that kid.
Yeah.
I saved that kid. And those things don't happen a lot. But it only takes a few.
Did you have one of those as a kid? Did you have a teacher or a coach that did that for you?
No. Probably because I was talented. I mean, I was smart and I was good at school, and obviously my dad was a huge impact on my life. But I actually talk about his coach, the one that got him to go to school. To say he became my dad's surrogate father is like saying like fire's hot or something. It's like, it's understated. This guy was the most powerful human in my dad's 88-year life. And this guy died 3 days before my first birthday. So I never met the guy. He died on the bench coaching, of all things. And, but my dad would have never, ever been who he was if not for that one man. So I like to talk about that because that coach was born in 1895 and fought in World War I. But I would not be here today if it wasn't for that coach. And my dad was my mom was a high school valedictorian. My dad would have never married a high school valedictorian if he was not in college, if he was like a construction worker. So I think that it's important for coaches and people who work with kids to understand that it's possible that this guy that would be 125 years old right now is still influencing kids.
What? Cool? Yeah, it's incredibly cool. I had a teacher. He was my speech and drama coach and my English teacher. And there's no way I would be here today without him. Like, no way. And
would you say, this is an interesting question I've been asked before, if you take away family members, moms and dads, obviously they have huge impact, positive, negative, whatever, aunts, uncles that are close to, if you name like the 10 most influential people in your life, some would be teachers and coaches, right?
Absolutely. 110%, especially in my younger years, and then there was the lady so people don't feel like if you're not a teacher or coach, you can't impact kids. There was a lady at the apartment rental office, the apartments that we lived in, that there were no kids allowed. And I was there for some reason. I don't know why, how my parents got into that, but I would go and visit her, and she would sit with me and talk to me every day. And so it matters, you guys. I also had a lady, I was selling candy, and my mother told me exactly what to say. And the very first door I knocked on, I was 6 years old. I've got this little can of candy, and I have my script in my head. I've got it memorized. And I knock on this door, and this woman answers the door, and she says, "What do you want?" And I said, "I'm selling this candy," and blah, blah. I said my whole thing. I just said it all. And she went, "You're such a good salesperson. I'm going to buy two." And it was like, holy cow, that woman in that much time convinced me I was a great salesperson, and I have been my whole life. So what would you challenge just the average adult to do when they interact with kids of any age?
Well, first of all, to like them and respect them. There are teachers that tell their students, or even parents that tell their kids, that respect must be earned. And I'm like, I don't like you. I mean, no, respect is given. And I believe that when you respect kids, they reflect you. I believe if you're enthusiastic, they reflect you. I also believe that the best teams inspire their coach, the enthusiasm of their athletes. So I call it the endless feedback loop, that if I create a wonderful practice environment that kids look forward to, that they will become better athletes. And as they become better athletes, they become more enthused, and their enthusiasm is reflected by me, who wants to learn more and help them more. So instead of this top-down militaristic thing of I make the rules, I make the consequences, and you're going to have to earn my respect. Instead of that, I'm the opposite. I don't have rules. I don't have consequences. That doesn't mean my kids act poorly. They say, "How do you discipline kids then?" And I'm like, well, my mom never hit me. Not one time. But she could hurt me by a look. And I think that if you respect kids and they respect you, that you don't have to punish them physically, that they will want to please you, and they will be disappointed in themselves when you're disappointed. And I think that's just, and too many parents are the same way, as you know, like, these are the rules, these are the consequences, there's no free rides, you're going to earn my respect. And then the kids I don't think they inspire their parents to become better parents. So it's just human nature. I wish that that all teachers would provide a better environment for kids. I really don't like that kids hate high school. My grandkids all love kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that kind of stuff. But somewhere along the line, we lose them. And I think it's because of that hard-nosed, you're going to have to grow up. I'm going to treat you like an adult. If you don't act like an adult, I'm going to treat you like a kid, and I think that's that holy grail of getting things done. And I have to say too, that does not mean I don't care about winning. What I believe is that winning will be a byproduct of that enthusiasm and that love and that respect. And so I'm not sacrificing performance to have a happy place.
So what is most important for your team, that the way they feel? What's most important?
Well, the most important thing is talent. I mean, seriously, it's you'll never take a workhorse and have them win the Kentucky Derby. Talent is important. So I think if you really want to be a good coach, you have to attract talented kids to your program. And they have a lot of options these days. They don't have to do sports. And so I say that every high school has a good track team. They're just not on the team. Because the practices are miserable and they hate the coach and all that kind of stuff. and the weather is awful in the spring in Illinois and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I want to create that great environment, just not just so that kids will perform, but so that kids with talent want to be on my team. And not every kid can be a talented sprinter. You know, it's just, and the kids that aren't, I try to tell them that if they go out for a musical, there might be 7 singing parts in the play, and they may not get one of those parts. But that doesn't mean they're like worthless, and it doesn't mean they can't be a part of the play. And so you have to treat every kid differently. So, you know, we have a culture that's really important, but still the performance that we have in practice and the improvement that we have is never compromised. So when I say my kids have fun, it's not like birthday fun. You know, it's not like, you know, playing around fun. It's more like we're competing and trying as hard as we can. And sometimes we lose and we're mad, but it's still fun.
Gosh, thank you so much for what you do. I mean, you remind me so much of Mr. Whittemire in the way you are and the way that and believe me, that's the highest compliment I could pay. Really, that man made he's no longer with us.
Oh, I was going to ask, is he still alive?
No, I ran into him in a grocery store probably 20 years ago. And he told me he was thinking of retiring, and I just started crying. I was an adult, and I'm like, you can't, you make such a difference in the world, and people don't get it. I mean, they don't get that teachers and coaches and Sunday school teachers and bus drivers and the lunch ladies, everybody who gets to interact with kids, you have so much power. I told you the story of that woman. It took her 2 minutes to do that, and it is still impacting me this day. So keep loving those kids, please. I mean, they need it. Who doesn't need it right now in these days?
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Whew.
I mean, like everybody needs, you know, everybody needs to find something that they can be enthusiastic about.
Yes.
Everybody. And if you don't have that, it may not be your fault, but it might be. You know, maybe you're just not looking hard enough. Maybe you're not reading enough. I really believe, you know, whenever I'm not doing as well as I should be doing, it usually goes back to I'm not running enough, I'm not working out, and I'm not reading enough. That those 2 things quiet the demons inside of me. And I was going to ask about your teacher too. I bet your teacher knew that he was good.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And no matter how good he knew he was, it was still hard sometimes. You know, there were hard kids that were unreachable. There were kids they tried to save and failed. So I don't want people to think that there's this magical place that some people get where everything is great. No, it's there's always, I mean, life is really hard. You know, teaching's hard, business is hard. But generally speaking, we get to choose how happy we are.
It's so true. And people are looking at you right now that are hearing this, and they're thinking, you're crazy. You didn't have this happen to you. You didn't have that happen to you. But you did, didn't you?
Yeah. My family filed for bankruptcy in 2004. 20 years later, I'm on a private jet.
Hello.
And we're able to pay bills. You know, I mean, I thought our life was over. We had 4 kids in 4 different schools, and we had to file for bankruptcy because of a crazy, stupid lawsuit that never should have happened. But yet, you know, I think it's really important for people to share hard things too. That you know that you can come back from.
Right. And my point in asking you that, it wasn't that I was trying to make you be so vulnerable, but thank you for being so vulnerable. But my point is, people look at people who are successful and they really do think that it's like you've got this perfect, happy world and that you really don't have to deal with stuff. You can't relate to me. You don't understand. And you don't know what it's like when you can't fill up your car with gas. Yes, we do. we do understand, and we've been there, and that's why we're not there anymore, because we're like, I've got to learn, I've got to get out of this, not just so I can get myself out, but so I can help other people.
Yes. And that other people thing, as you, I'm sure this is one of your mantras, that the more you give, the less you think about yourself.
That's right.
So like I could have, some health issues and, be really concerned about how bad my team's going to be this year, whatever. But the more you give, the less time you have to think about what you don't have.
Yeah, it is the key, and it is the most fulfilling thing ever. When you, especially when you're giving, like the 5 love languages, it's not that you're giving a box, a gift, you're giving of yourself. And that is very powerful.
Yes.
So tell me, what have I not asked you that I should have?
No, this has been great. I really love getting off the beaten track of running fast and how to win more games and all that kind of stuff. So this has been really good. And I think that I have a good friend that speaks to businesses, and he's a coach, and he once won 70 consecutive football games, which meant 5 consecutive state championships. And he's now on the sideline of the Green Bay Packers. He's with the organization, and he came out with a book last year that's spectacular called the Twin Thieves. Do you know what the Twin Thieves are?
I don't.
The fear of failure and the fear of judgment.
Ooh.
2 really different things. Judgment has nothing to do with failure. So he wrote a book called The Twin Thieves, and for like the last 10 years, he's been speaking to businesses for really making really good money doing it. But the same message that he would talk about with leadership and lessons and things that made his football teams better makes businesses better too. And that would be one that he's encouraged me to volunteer to speak to an insurance agency or something and start to hone those skills. And I've just never done it, but I think that might be something in my future that I would like to talk to people who might have a slight interest in watching football on Sundays or something, but they're not really sports people, but they're performance people. And I think that, a lot of these messages would work in any business.
You know what? I couldn't agree more, because anytime you improve one area of your life, Coach, all of the areas of your life get better. It's just the way it is. And I'm sure that a lot of the same tactics that you're using to win games can help people win business.
For sure. And that's what Steve Jones has found is, that his leadership ideas, everybody wants to have leadership by saying, hey, we need leaders here, but they don't spend time creating those leaders. Right. There's certain things you have to learn how to do to be a leader. And it's not just like, okay, I'm brave and bold now, and I'm going to take a leadership role. No, there's like tactics, that you have to learn, or else you will never get a group of people to follow you.
That's right. So many people feel like they're leaders and then turn around and there's nobody there. That's a pretty good indication that you're really not. Yeah. And I will say, in business, now I'm sure it's different in your world, but in business, the top-down management style is just hanging on by a thread. Millennials will not put up with that kind of stuff. And they know everything about these computers and all this artificial intelligence and all that stuff. So these people that are not respecting employees, just like teachers who don't respect kids, all of it can go together. I think you're really onto something there.
I like that. And I love, once again, when I hear that millennials are like that, I'm like, I respect them more. Yes. For not putting up with that. And as you know, there are so many people that no longer have to go into the office.
Yeah.
and punch in. That they are graded by their their achievements, and those achievements can happen at home or in the office. Sometimes the office is necessary, obviously, but I just really like the rethinking of the whole top down. I'm the boss, you're the employee. Shut up, punch in. This is what I expect you to do. Those people will never give you more than you ask for,
Of course not.
ever.
Hmm. No.
And that's what we want, though. We want creativity. We want people looking forward to work the next day. I'm sure you've had jobs. I had a couple jobs when I was in college that made me really understand that I do not want to do that type of job for the rest of my life,
Oh yeah.
because it was top down. It was, people were mean, and you just had to do mindless work. And God bless people who can do that, but it's a lot. Uh, you're going to have a lot more going on, I think, when you are self-motivated and you just want to produce. You want to be a performer, and so that's a holy grail of business, probably too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this podcast is called "Think Your Way to an Epic Life." So, can you leave our listeners with some kind of advice on how to actually think their way to an epic life? It sounds like your life is pretty epic now.
I'm definitely living the best years of my life right now, which is really exciting at 65. Think your way to a better life. I will go to my performance pyramid. My performance pyramid is, the first layer is rest, recovery, sleep, my shirt, nutrition, hydration. That if you're not doing those 5 things, you don't give yourself a chance as an athlete to be good. And then we could argue that a business, like a parent or a business who are not adopting those things. One of the things, we only train speed when kids are fresh. If they come in dragging, or I send them home. Oh, coach, I'm okay. No, I can tell you're not ready to sprint today. And so I'm teaching them that being alert and rested and being the best version of themselves is the entire foundation of everything we do after. So then my next layer is becoming an athlete, not necessarily a golfer, volleyball player, but sprinting and jumping and lifting and bouncing, all those athletic things. And then we go to the next level. So I think that generally speaking, we could apply that pyramid to what we're doing, that if you don't have that solid base, you're just not going to perform well. And there's, as you know, there's a lot of people that struggle with sleep and alcohol and just, they're just not eating right. I need to start working out. Have you read Atomic Habits?
Oh yes, I've actually done a book review on it. I love that book.
You. My famous workout is called the Atomic Speed Workout.
Oh, okay.
That came from that. And I just think that we are nothing more than a collection of our habits.
You're right.
That book will teach you how to develop good habits and get rid of the bad ones. Maybe one of the most impactful books ever written.
Seriously, I couldn't. It is such. It's just human nature. I love the part where the lady said, "I can change the eating habits of this entire hospital and not say a word to anyone," and she did. Right, the water use, drinking water went up like 28%. The candy went down in the toilet. All she did was move stuff around. We're so habitual, and we think we know what we're doing all the time. We don't. We're just grabbing what's easy.
The smartest people can be so dumb.
Yes. Yes. I are one.
I'm smart. I've been dumb as can be. My mistakes have been legendary. So yeah, I just think that there's stuff out there. There's Atomic Habits. I think is a great place to start, and then Essentialism is a great book, and The Twin Thieves, and yeah, there's just so many books that I love.
All right. Well, Coach Tony Holler, we can't thank you enough at Think Your Way to an Epic Life for giving us so much of your wisdom, spending time with us. We'll put all of your information below. So, guys, don't hesitate. Click on that, check out his website, and see if there's anything that you can learn from our wonderful coach.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.